this is unlike any other presidency we've ever covered, and of course that's in part because it comes in two parts. Part one, 2017 to 2021, and now we're almost a year into part two with the 4-year interregnum during the Biden years. And I am, as much as anything, a student of Donald Trump's connection to America, Donald Trump's connection to the news business. It's an incredible story, and as much as it gets written about, I don't think the story's ever really been told. How much his presence in our lives, particularly people who pay attention to politics, but even people who don't in our popular culture, how much Donald Trump drives all that, largely by design, because he's got a nose for news and a fingertip feel for how to make things happen and get coverage. But I want to take you inside my process here. You know, every episode, every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm looking to do my reporting on what I think the biggest story is, because I want to be on point. I want to be on the topic that I think you'll be most interested in. And that's typically the biggest story. In Trump time, the times of Trump, the days of Trump, the era of Trump, it's often hard to tell what the biggest story is. And so I do a lot of my reporting passively, in the sense that I hear from folks, Democrats, Republicans, government officials, political strategists, business people, candidates, office holders. I hear from people who asking me questions or telling me their point of view on things. And typically that helps me understand what's going on. I'm blessed because I've been at this for so long, and I've got deep connections, again, not just in both parties, but across the country. I'm blessed to hear from a lot of people. And between that and monitoring the news on social media, cable news, other news sources, I'm usually pretty able to kind of hone things, to narrow things down, to say, what are the 3 or 4 likely things that I'm going to want to report on, and do deeper dive and get the best information for you for the program. And some days it's harder than others, usually because there's maybe 4 or 5 choices, right? And so how do you narrow it down, particularly in a news cycle that moves so quickly? This news cycle was bonkers because there are about 25 stories. And I had that confirmed for me this morning. I went to bed last night thinking, man, I could talk about this or that, Trump and foreign policy, the shutdown, the struggles of the Democratic Party, the aftermath of the rallies over the weekend, Latin America, China, Russia, just a million stories. So this morning, as I still was thinking about where to focus my reporting in the time left, I had plenty of good little tidbits on a bunch of things. I did what I do often at 6 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be at the gym, and I've got YouTube TV. If you don't have YouTube TV, you're making a big mistake. It's not an endorsement, although they should pay me because I'm their biggest fan. YouTube TV is an incredible way to access television of all sorts. And they've got what we used to call in the news business, the quad split. Just go on my iPad and press a couple buttons, and all of a sudden I'm watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and then the fourth one they put the BBC. They want some foreigners in there for a little perspective. And so I watch at 6 a.m. and I see all at one screen, what's everybody leading with? And I was so curious because at that point I had things narrowed down to about 10 possible stories, and I still had some time to do additional reporting on wherever I landed. And so I lost count, but on the 4 shows, they each did, within the first 5 minutes, from 6 Eastern to 6:05, they each did like at least 7 stories that they jumped around to, including some sports stories, including the heist at the Louvre. I don't have great Louvre sources. I probably should, but I don't. The internet outage with Amazon AWS. I was interested in that too. I'm interested in the Louvre also, interested in the World Series. But they each did at least 7 stories in the first 5 minutes. And some of them did a couple more than that. And that told me what I needed to know, which is, so it's a funky news cycle. About 75% of the stories related to Donald Trump. Okay. And right now, foreign and domestic, there's so much going on that he's generating. There's never been a presidency like this. The closest in my career was Bill Clinton. When he came in, he was the first Democratic president since Carter. There was a lot of interest in what he was doing, a very active first year, first all 8 years, really. Nothing like this. If that was a 10 on terms of generating news, this is a 40 or maybe a 50. And in part, it's because there is so much more media, but it's in part because Trump is doing so many things. He's doing so many things. And everybody's got an opinion about what he does. Like it, don't like it, like part of it. And I was just thinking about foreign policy, okay? Trump is right now, and he'll tell you this, he does. he's involved in a very intense and high level way, continuing with the Middle East. Now he's got help, of course, Jared Kushner and Witkoff, Ambassador Witkoff, and Vice President, all in Israel this week. But the president's very involved in that. Peace in the Middle East for a normal president, that'd be a big thing to be involved in. But he's also trying to make peace between Russia and Ukraine. Again, heavily involved in that. He's met with Zelensky, President Zelensky, 4 times this year. Putin once and maybe again. And then he's also dealing with this upcoming summit with the Chinese and this existential struggle with the Chinese. Those are as big as a sort of a foreign policy challenge as any president deals with. And yet he's dealing with all 3 at the same time. Again, intense and high level. And then I thought this morning, because I got a question on two-way for 2 days in a row, we did about Latin America. What's happening with Latin America, the president has active engagement, spearheaded by Secretary Rubio, who's long been an expert on the region and super interested in it, active engagement with at least half dozen Latin American countries. Some allies, some less so. But just what's happening, this is literally, somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's literally the most intense high-level engagement any president in my career has had with Latin America, okay? I think by a lot, and yet it's the 4th biggest foreign policy story, national security story for this president right now. That's incredible. It's incredible. And it's almost all seen through the prism of Republicans cheering him on, even though there's some people in the Republican Party who don't like some of his views on these things, and the Democrats either being silent or critical for the most part, even though I'll say these were 4 areas not dealt with by Joe Biden. He was involved with them, but no meaningful progress. Now, the proof will be in the pudding at the end of Donald Trump's term, how much success he's had in these 4 areas. And to continue to throw on cliched metaphors, the jury's out. There's not one of these 4 areas where you could be confident, even if you were the biggest Trump booster in the world, that this will end well. But he's trying different things. He's talking to people. He's being aggressive, even when public opinion isn't necessarily on his side. Great op-ed piece in the Washington Post this week by a guy named Ned Price, longtime Democratic foreign policy thinker, served with Barack Obama, Joe Biden. And he said all the normal throat clearing, of course, Donald Trump's horrible president in so many ways, including on foreign policy. But then he gave him credit. And I give Ned Price credit because he singled out some of the areas we've talked about here before. President Trump is talking to our enemies. Joe Biden largely did not do that, and that's no way to make progress. He's trying new things. He's going against public opinion sometimes. These are all things that may or may not work, but they're different, and they have the potential to solve Latin America, China, Middle East, Russia, Ukraine. Whereas traditional foreign policy thinkers, including in the last administration, they tried. I'm not saying they didn't put in long hours at the office, but they were not on a path to solving those things. So on the foreign realm, you couldn't have bigger stories. And in fact, I've long said, I think they're undercovered. They're getting a lot of coverage, but these are epic. These are monumental. These are not just for Donald Trump's legacy, but for the planet, for the safety of the planet, for the lives of people. Incredible. And then here at home, again, too many stories to count, too many stories to enunciate. Some not involving the president. He's not involved directly with the World Series or with the AWS outage or with Karine Jean-Pierre's book. But he's involved with a heck of a lot of stuff, starting with government shutdown. For some reason, the president, he talks about it almost every day. Somehow, normally he wants to be involved. Somehow he's cast as a supporting player. Even though he talks about it, even though he's the president and the shutdown's on his watch, and you could expect perhaps the president to be calling the Democrats on a regular basis, having them up to the White House to try to solve this. He's escaping largely unscathed, and the polls suggest that. He's not held blameless in the polls, but it's not overwhelmingly at his doorstep. And even the people in Congress, the Democrats, anxious to get him involved. The Republicans don't seem to be. So again, that's a huge story. And then you have these other stories that are super important and meaningful, but maybe not as important as Russia, Ukraine, or the Middle East or China. President continues to have court decisions about whether he can send the National Guard to cities. President continues to see his own Justice Department, at his urging, indict a new person practically every week, someone who's a political enemy of his. The president continues to do things related to the economy and tariffs that are hugely important. And then there are these other issues that get a ton of attention. President's decided he wants to build a ballroom at the White House, not paid for with taxpayer money, but yesterday, on Monday this week, the pictures came out, video and still pictures of construction at the White House. I can't tell you how many Democrats I've heard about on that. And I say to them, I understand you don't like the pictures that show stuff being knocked down at the White House. And the president made remarks previously that suggested, I forget the exact words he used, but there wouldn't be massive damage to the White House or changes there. It appears, if you take him literally, parse his words carefully, wasn't strictly right there. But that's not a very big story to me. But again, the president, whether on purpose or not, has people riled up. Here's something I'm virtually certain he did on purpose. He tweeted a video, AI-generated video, of him, like as a superhero, I guess, pouring sewage on the No Kings protesters. Silly video, and yet I've literally heard from more than 5 Democrats who've said in one way or another, this is one of the most horrible things Donald Trump's ever done. This disgusting imagery of sewage. Again, the man is just so dominant in the brains. That expression lives rent-free in their heads. They've just not learned to ignore this, what it seems to me to be relatively trivial stuff. So I see today, as I did all my reporting on half dozen, really more than a half dozen topics, I see a president whose poll numbers aren't great, but they're better than the Democrats' poll numbers, who's not running for re-election, who's super concerned about the midterms, and who's got these very big projects going on. And I see on the Democratic side an uncertainty about what's wrong with their own party, but a certainty that what's wrong with America is Donald Trump. That's what I see. And I also see even the most studious minds, even the closest observers to all this, I don't think we really understand the methods of Donald Trump, the influence of Donald Trump, his capacity to drive the news cycle, and often to win the news cycle by whatever metrics we can use. And I think about just they say the rest of the year, all these big foreign policy stories are going to play out. The government shutdown is going to play out. The tariffs are going to play out. These legal cases are going to play out. The Supreme Court will decide on a lot of stuff. The National Guard issue will play out. There's a lot coming up. And what I see again is Trump will be the dominant figure. There's no one in the Democratic Party who can touch him. And his side is fine with that. They've kind of priced it into the stock. Donald Trump will be the dominant figure. And what I've heard more in the last day than almost anything is from Democrats saying they got 100 grievances about the prosecutions, about the sewage video, about the ballroom, about the shutdown, my friend Joe Scarborough has this saying: if you're moving 700 miles per hour, no one's going to slow you down, let alone stop you. And then I take that metaphor and I supercharge it, say, if you're a 700-pound gorilla and you're moving 700 miles per hour, nobody's going to slow you down, and certainly nobody's going to stop you. And that has been the pace Trump has kept for most of the last 10 years, even when he was not the president. For 4 years he was out. But right now, this is staggering. This is staggering. And you think about the folks in the White House, they're running all these foreign policy things, they're dealing with all these domestic policy things in the midst of a government shutdown where there are employees who are laid off, there are employees who are not at work. Most of the White House folks are essential government employees, so they're there, but they're laboring under a very limited condition. And it doesn't really matter. It does not really matter because Trump himself can drive so much of this, very able cabinet, very able White House staff, but so much of this is driven by Donald Trump. I'm just staggered, particularly by those foreign policy projects, as big as any president I've ever covered has worked on, and he's doing 4 of them right now, and that's not including the tariffs. 4 of them right now: China, Russia, Ukraine, and Middle East and Latin America. It's just staggering, and it's why I had to abandon all my reporting on these little topics and just tell you. Some days you just have to sit back and marvel at what this guy's capacity to just dominate our days. I want to tell you about a group called the Vapor Technology Association. It's an organization started about a decade ago to protect the rights of Americans who choose alternatives to smoking, and about the small businesses who have made a living using this technology. They support science-based policies and the rights of adults to make healthier choices. Did you know that many family-owned vape shops and manufacturers across the country are now under attack thanks to what are outdated Biden-era regulations that threaten to wipe out an entire industry? The Vapor Technology Association, also known as VTA, says businesses are being destroyed and people are losing their jobs here in America. But the VTA says President Trump has a clear opportunity now to change all this and to protect Americans' right to make their own choices and to defend small businesses and restore a free and fair marketplace. Head over now to vaportechnology.org to learn more about the organization and why they are leading the charge to support American innovation in this field. And if their mission appeals to you while you're there, consider becoming a member of the group on the site. Again, that's vaportechnology.org. Tell them you heard about all this on Next Up.